Good morning. My name is Doug Meyer, one of the associate pastors here, at least for today, at Trietsch. Welcome to our online friends. We're really glad you're here. We hope you're glad you're here as well. If you are a first-time visitor, gosh, we're really blessed that you chose to come and be with us today. As you exit the sanctuary, know that we have a little new here desk. Folks staffing that all morning long who have all the information, literally, that you could ever want to know about getting involved in the life of the church here. There's a little gift, a gift basket full of some goodies. Stop by there, please. We promise we won't haunt you too long after you do that. We hope you've checked in. You know, you can do that here at Trietsch either by going by the check-in kiosk or by just dropping a prayer card in the offering plate as it goes by in a minute. Speaking of the prayer cards, we look over and pray over every one of those every week. And if you've got a concern going on in your life, please avail yourself of that opportunity. There's a spot on there where if you'd like to talk to a pastor, one of us will get back in touch with you as soon as we can. And it's a great resource. So I hope you'll take advantage of that. So that all said, I have a question for you. Who in here has what we'll just kind of generically call stuff? Raise your hand if you got stuff. Only one time. And if you don't have stuff, look to the person to your right and ask them, do you have stuff? Now look to your left. Do you have stuff? Because what I can promise you, and in a moment we're going to do an empirical test that proves it, but we all have stuff. Over the last couple of weeks, we've I have stuff. We have used the word broken. We are all broken. And I'll be honest with you, when I first heard that, I kind of recoiled a little bit. And it was out of just my own pride, I think. That was like, well, I might be broken, but you can't call me broken. I can call me broken. But you know what? Yeah, I'm broken. I got stuff. I got boxes of stuff. I got buckets of stuff. Some of us prefer to look at it as, well, maybe I'm just a little cracked. Maybe I'm like a piece of garden pottery. Maybe I've got some surface cracks. Maybe I'm just a little chipped. Or maybe we're like Humpty Dumpty, and we have fallen off the wall, and we are just scattered in pieces. There's a recovery program called Celebrate Recovery, and the way that they introduce it is all of us have a hurt, a habit, or a hang-up. So as you begin to see, the brush is pretty broad here, isn't it? It's pretty hard to be excluded from anybody who has stuff. Could even be an addiction. It could just be, well, every now and then I might have a little slip up. It could be that, well, people call you, the popular phrase now is a hot mess. All right? So if you're not in one of those categories, you get a free pass now and you can just go on home. So I was reading this week about all of this, and I came across this noted Christian psychologist. And he says he has come up with the empirical test to identify whether or not you have stuff. It's a little technical, so I need your full attention, and I need you to cooperate. Take your right hand and put it out in front of you. Come on, Chris. Now, take a finger and put it towards your center. And if you find your core, some of us, the core is harder to find than others. And then push in. And if your finger finds your belly button, if you have a belly button, you have stuff. If you do not have a belly button, we would like to talk to you immediately after worship. Those of us who have stuff know this verse particularly well. It was written by Paul to the Church of Rome. The minute I start reading it, you too, I think, will claim it. It comes out of chapter 7. For we know that the law is spiritual, but I'm of the flesh, sold into slavery under sin. I do not understand my own actions. For I do not do what I want, but I do the very thing I hate. Let's hear that one more time. I do not understand my own actions. How many of us have ever said that? Perhaps even this morning, right? For I do not do what I want, but I do the very thing I hate. We're funny people, aren't we? So we name our stuff, but yet sometimes we condition our stuff based on your stuff. Imagine that in front of you this morning is this line, this invisible continuum, and it starts over here on the far left with, let's say, Jesus. Then you slide over here, and maybe about the midpoint, you're going to have Mother Teresa and Billy Graham. And then you come way over here, and you have Doug Meyer and some other scoundrels. So where on that continuum do you put yourself? We had a lot of fun this week at staff meeting. I asked everybody to do that, and it was really kind of fun watching the squirming. But, one of the things we do by human nature is we plant ourselves there, and then we look over to the right, and you go, well, I got stuff. Well, I don't have near as much stuff as that person. So kind of unconsciously, we recondition ourselves to say what? Well, my stuff's not so bad because there's a whole lot of people who have a whole lot worse stuff than me. Thank you, Jesus. All right? So speaking of one of those people who had stuff, we're going to preach for the next 4 weeks out of this story, and it is rich and full for all of us. The prodigal son. The prodigal son has basically 3 characters. The younger son, or the younger brother, the older brother, and the dad. This week I posed a question on Facebook about which one of those do you identify with, and I was a little surprised. A number of you said the fatted calf. We all have a fatted calf kind of day, don't we? Well, let's go back to think for just a minute. You got your younger brother. How many of us have had a younger brother kind of day? Or a lifetime? I want what I want, and I want it when? Now. Like right now. Like give it to me now. It was custom in that day to get your inheritance when? Well, when the father died. So what essentially the younger brother was saying is, Dad, I just assume you be dead. Matter of fact, if you were dead, it'd be all the better because it would make me getting my stuff a little easier. So the younger brother declared that sense of independence and said, I want my stuff and I want it now. The story goes, Father, give me the share of the property that will belong to me. So he divided his property between them. A few days later, the younger son gathered all he had and traveled to a distant country, and there he squandered his property in dissolute living. Have any of y'all looked up the word dissolute? It's kind of an R-rated word. It is, like one of the key words is debauchery and rowdy living. It has to do with maybe living loosely. And since this is a family time, I won't go into some of the other things that are involved in dissolute living. But just know he was a rascal. He was a rascal to the nth degree. So again, I ask you, how many of you all have ever, if not today, connected yourself to the younger brother? You can kind of raise your hand lowly. I also have a sense that we have some big brothers in here. The traditional posture for a big brother, do y'all know it? Is this right here. You have to cross your arms, and you kind of have to look down, and if you have glasses, you have to put them down like this. And you look with disdain and disgust and judgment because that dang younger brother of yours has done messed up the family. He has turned his back on the family and has hightailed it out of here, and no telling what in the world he's going to do. And then at the very end of the story, that younger whippersnapper has the nerve to come back, get back in our lives, and get in on my action. That blank with him, right? But none of us have ever. I know we don't do that, do we? The older father gives us a phenomenal example of what we are talking about when we say the word reckless grace. To act with abandon, without any thought of the consequences. To throw wide his arms and to do what? To take that son and pull him, give him a kiss on his cheek. My son, I am so glad you're home. Who does that remind us of? Of God. Well, friends, I want to introduce you to some of our friends. So folks in our congregation who have courageously stepped forward today to say, you know what? Man, I've done some younger son living. Some of it has gotten me in a mess. In some cases, I'm in recovery for my mess. I've hurt some people. I've hurt myself. And I'm working really hard maybe to clean up the mess I've caused. So join me now as we get to appreciate their stories.
Hi, my name is Justin Trudeau. I'm a recovering alcoholic, and I was also addicted to opiate pain medication.
Hi, I'm Tracy Henniger. Our family have been members here at Trietsch for about 20 years, and I am the mom to a son who is currently in recovery from substance abuse.
My name is Davis Henniger. I'm 20 years old. I've been in recovery for 8 months, and I am a recovering drug addict.
Hi, I'm Wendy Meyer, and I'm a recovering sex and love addict, and it all stems from being sexually molested as a child.
My name is Remington. I'm a recovering addict. I've been sober for about 1.5 years now.
Hi, I'm Amy Parsons. I have been a member of Trietsch for 18 years, and I have struggled with depression off and on for the past 25 years.
Hi, I'm Jay. I have been a member at Trietsch for about 15 years. I'm a recovering addict for about 40 years. Had multiple addictions in my life.
Hi, I'm Martha, and I've been a member at Trietsch now for 10 years. My brother is my qualifier in being introduced into a 12-step program.
My name's David Taylor. I've been a member of Trietsch for about 32 years now, and I'm an alcoholic.
Wow. Let's give those folks a hand for their courage. So I too am in recovery. I have been for 8 years. 40-year struggle. It was a really hard struggle. I'm not going to go into it all here, but I'd be happy to talk to you about it personally and privately. But I've chosen, because of our younger ears, to maybe not drop a word onto your family vocabulary that you're not ready to unpack yet. So I can speak from the anxiety of those who have for a long time had a secret, who have carried around with them shame and embarrassment, because the last thing we ever wanted was for you to know that we were not who we espoused to be. Admitting the struggle makes it all the more real. You might be asking yourself this morning, why in the world are we talking about this subject at church today? I'll be honest with you. When I woke up this morning, I asked myself, why are we talking about this subject at church today? And God said it is the good and right thing to do. Church, in my opinion, should be the place that collects all of us who have stuff, all of us who are broken, all of us who are bruised, all of us who have issues. There should be a whole section right over here for everybody who's a hot mess. Maybe it already is. Just saying. You know, it is terrifying. I can promise you that I thought all of my life I would carry this to my grave. I could never imagine a scenario where I would tell one person, much less a room full of people, and maybe today's the day that there are just one or two watching on the internet. It was a secret. It was a secret that came with it this humongous ball of shame. I'm a pastor. Pastors, well, aren't we supposed to be above reproach? Aren't we supposed to be above having problems? I was born into, and have done quite well in what I would call a world of image management. We all do that pretty well, don't we? If I just look nice, and if I just drive the the right car and I have the right pretty family and go to the right schools and get the right jobs, you all will buy that and won't get too close to see my surface level cracks and my brokenness. Because surely if you do, you will run out of the room with your hair on fire. Surely you will say, that man has no business being a pastor. That man, that man, that man. I could not get past that tape in my head that said, if you tell, forget it. And then there came a moment about 8 years ago when I said, you know what? I'm exhausted. I can't do that anymore. So either life as I know it will end, or I will move into a whole new way of living. It was much like standing on the edge of a diving board. We were raised at our house with the guiding factor was fear. Don't go out in the world because it's fearful. Don't do this, it's fearful. My mom had a really tragic accident as a young girl, and her brother had drowned while they were all swimming. So, of course, we were what? We were terrified of going swimming. Fortunately, our dad, on the other hand, said, every one of my kids is going to learn how to swim. So little Dougie Meyer stood up on the edge of that high diving board. It was supposed to be graduation. Have you ever done that? Like gone all the way up there? It's at least 10 stories high. Where I learned how to swim, they just had this crank, and they would just, and I remember standing there, and then I would back off. And you know, there's always that really excited kid behind you, kind of what we lovingly call show off or whatever. And go, Meyer, go! And so I would get to the edge. Finally, 10-year-old Dougie Meyer jumped. And finally, 50-year-old Dougie Meyer took the leap. What I can tell you is that the splash was a little hard, but the water felt great. It was a phenomenal experience. But this sense of fear that we all unconsciously contribute to is debilitating. I want you to hear a little bit about some of the fear that our friends felt who've already shared with us.
Well, fear's been like a double-edged sword for me in my recovery. Fear is what has driven me to a lot of my addictions. Fear of everyday life, fear of my image and managing all those things.
The fear of being judged, the fear of people seeing you and realizing how far you've fallen, the fear of not being worthy to be loved.
Fear impacted my recovery greatly. There was great fear in letting my friends know that I even had a problem and that I was in recovery. And that fear kept my addiction in the closet for years.
Fear definitely impacted how I felt about my brother, because I realized that at any point he could end up overdosing on too many pills. He could also find himself in a car accident by drinking too much and getting behind the wheel of a car.
I was afraid to be with people. I was afraid not to be with people. I was afraid to be with God. I was afraid not to be with God. And so fear really permeated everything that I thought, did, and believed.
When you're scared of something, you get your adrenaline going, and then that fear is gone, and then you feel a little relief, and then you can kind of calm down and go back to what regular life is. That fear never left. It was living in that constant state of, I don't know what to do. I'm scared for my child. I'm afraid he's going to die. What's going to happen? I think fear has impacted me the most in having the courage to accept the challenge, and I've always been afraid of what people would think.
Just not knowing what the next day is going to bring and not knowing what kind of emotions are going to come up for me can be pretty scary at times. When I was taking drugs, in a way, it made more consistency in my life, which gave me less to be scared about because I always could make myself feel a certain way. And now that I don't have that, it can be scary at times.
So I guess my fear was being found out, and my fear was that others would find out that I wasn't quite the person that I was proclaiming to be. And then fear was, how am I going to live my life now that my whole world has dropped out from underneath me?
Whatever your story is, I'm confident that you too have a sense of fear. You know, I frequently, and you've maybe heard me use this phrase, the story I make up. We all make up stories, don't we? Whether it's about our own fear or whether it's about your judgment. There's nobody harsher on those of us who have a hurt habit or a hang-up than ourselves. But we at times feel like we deserve your condemnation or your judgment or your shame contribution because, well, we're unlovable. We are beyond God's grace. But what most of us have come to understand is God's grace has no limits. God's grace is represented in the dad. The end of the prodigal son in verse 20, he says, so he set off and went to his father. But while he was still far off, his father saw him and was filled with compassion, and he ran out and put his arms around him and kissed him. Did you catch that little phrase? While he was still far off. He didn't wait for his son to come dragging tail home. He didn't wait for just pleas and apologies. The daddy said, come home, buddy. I love you. Oh, that we, the church, could be the place that says, come home. We love you. I'm convinced that we need to replace the fear of being found out with the fear of not being able to find a parking spot in the congregation because we've collected so many dang broken people. What do you say? I also think we need to start a t-shirt line that says, I'm one of those people. My mama is one of those people. My baby brother is one of those people. And then right down here underneath it, right across my belly, and it would say, and we love her. And we love him. Friends, it's well past time. Whether you look in the life of our culture today and the opioid crisis, whether you walk up and down the halls at Marcus High School, or whether you walk up and down the halls of Trietsch Memorial United Methodist Church, it is time that we put away our fears of image management or what will they think. Instead, come home. Come home. Come home. Let's pray. Gracious and loving God, you are ever present. Thank you for the courage for my friends and I to live into transparency and honesty and vulnerability. It's tough. There's days it feels overrated. But we know to grow deeper with you and deeper in life, that's what we need to do. God, I pray for my friends who are hearing this word today that maybe are at the end of the diving board. May my words not be the cajoling of the little kid, but the welcome of a friend who says, I'll get in the water with you. I'll catch you. Thank you, God. Amen.